time. Breaking tonight. Totally unacceptable. Those words from President Trump rejecting Iran's response to the latest peace proposal for ending the war, adding that he doesn't, quote, like it. Though President Trump offered no specifics about the Iranian response and what it contained, this follows weeks of stalled negotiations between the two countries with no clear end in sight. Also tonight, an Israeli official confirmed with MS Now that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Trump spoke by phone today. All of this, of course, comes as Trump is expected to meet China's leader Xi Jinping this week for a high-stakes summit. The two are expected to discuss the ongoing Iran war, trade, and Taiwan, among other points. Xi, for his part, has urged for the Strait of Hormuz to reopen. Meanwhile, Trump is optimistic about the upcoming talks.
My relationship is very good with President Xi. I don't know the other leaders, but President Xi is a good man, smart man, loves China. And I look forward to being there. We did this once before, and it was amazing. It's going to be I think it's going to be an amazing trip.
Starting us off tonight to unpack all of this, Amir Hanjani, fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Also with us is Andy Brown, China columnist at Semafor and editor of Semafor's China newsletter. So, Amir, let's start with you. Trump did not disclose what exactly he didn't like about this deal that he rejected from Iran, but what do you know about the contours of what this last round's agreement had in it?
Well, it's not surprising. Trump wants everything up front. That's his negotiation style. The single most valuable thing that Iran has that Trump wants is the enriched uranium. He wants that out of Iran. He wants that out of Iran as a first step. The Iranians know that if they give that up, they've lost all their leverage. That's an irreversible step for them. Trump can offer all sorts of things. He can offer sanctions relief. He can offer an end to the war. But those are all reversible. Sanctions come back on, war can start in the middle of negotiations again, as has happened twice before. So the Iranians aren't going to give that up because they recognize that that's an irreversible step for them. They've loaded up everything else first. Let's talk about the end of the war in Lebanon, end to the war with Iran, sanctions relief, opening up the Straits of Hormuz, ending the blockade. They're willing to do all that first, and then we'll talk about the enriched uranium. Trump wants the reverse. He wants the enriched uranium out first.
Well, there's another person who's signaling that this war is far from over, and that is Benjamin Netanyahu, who sat down with 60 Minutes and very much signaled that there's more to come here. I want you to take a listen.
Is the war with Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what? Special forces from Israel? Special forces of the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there.
It certainly sounds like he's saying that he's had conversations with President Trump about whether it's a joint operation or at least an American commitment to send people in to go after the enriched uranium that you were just talking about.
Yeah, which is a farce. That's a fantasy because the enriched uranium is buried underground in Isfahan and possibly in other sites. You'd have to go in there with hundreds of people. You have to bring in diggers and movers. It's an operation that would take days and weeks. Can you imagine American and Israeli forces inside Iranian territory? It's a country of 92 million people. They're going to be under siege by all sides, by the IRGC, the Iranian army. Even local Iranians would attack them. So that's not really doable. What Benjamin Netanyahu really wants is a resumption of the war. Because if the war resumes, all of his personal and political problems get put to the back burner. As long as that war continues and the United States is engaged in that war, then all the other issues he's facing at home go away. So that's why he wants this to start.
One of the big talking points this week between the Americans and the Chinese will be the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, China, it's very important for China, perhaps more so than for the U.S., to get the flow of oil going out again from Iran. Is there any chance that the Chinese leadership will be able to convince President Trump to end the war and try to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and to get the global economy back up and running as quickly as possible?
I think they have very limited leverage over Trump. Their own economy actually is pulling through pretty well. They have huge stockpiles of oil. And the way it's hurting really is in their export markets, because the Chinese economy is an export-driven economy. So to the extent that their trading partners are doing badly, that affects them. But they're weathering the storm pretty well. I think what the real meaning of this is that Trump goes to China with a much weakened negotiating position. This was supposed to be his diplomatic victory lap. Gets rid of Nicolas Maduro. He has a short, sharp war against Iran, and then he goes to Beijing and he grabs a whole bunch of lucrative business deals. That's not happening. And of course, it's not the only setback. The Supreme Court knocked back his IEEPA tariffs. Federal court just knocked back his emergency tariffs. So he's sitting across the table with Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping thinks he's got the wind at his back.
I want to delve deeper into that, because it seems like in some ways this war has actually benefited China. You mentioned that China has sort of been less scathed by the war than some other countries, including perhaps the United States, if you look at estimates for how much it'll affect our GDP versus theirs. But it seems like in some ways they've actually benefited, because you have a lot of other countries around the world now looking for alternatives to fossil fuels, not necessarily for climate-related reasons, but because of energy resiliency reasons. They don't want to be battered about by disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz or elsewhere, and China has the tech for it. The New York Times had a story recently about how since the war began, Beijing has held high-level talks with officials from the Philippines, Australia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. What do you think the long-term impact might be from this war on China's standing in the world?
Well, I think you really nailed it. I mean, China is a electro state. It's going to be the world's first electro state. They make the world's green hardware. 70-80% of everything, solar, wind, batteries, comes from China. So this is a huge export possibility. And of course, locking countries into China. China owns the energy, is going to own the energy future even more after this war. Then there's the propaganda side of things. So China can say it's the United States that is a force for chaos and disruption in the world. We are the force for stability. And that plays in Asia. This war is being experienced among Asian economies, particularly the smaller ones, as an economic heart attack. So there's very good reporting out of the Washington Post. They went to talk to some rice farmers in Thailand. They're not planting the spring crop. There's going to be huge food disruption in the second half of this year. It's going to go from east to west, from south to north. And these countries are blaming the United States. In fact, opinion polls are showing that in the global south, China is now a more trusted player than the United States.
Well, and also our Gulf allies are not exactly happy right now, because America started this war and they are the ones who are facing barrages of drones. So what is the word on the street in terms of continued U.S. involvement in Iran to get some kind of stability versus reaching some kind of deal with Iran, but leaving an Iran that still might have some vendettas against U.S. partners?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The Gulf feels that the U.S. started this war without proper consultation, without proper military preparedness in the Gulf states. That has fractured in many ways existing fault lines that were there and made them more severe. You've got Oman and Qatar essentially taking a very pragmatic approach with Iran. They want a diplomatic deal, they want an off-ramp, because they don't want their energy infrastructure damaged and set back even further, particularly Qatar. The Saudis are quietly behind the Pakistani and the Turkish approach, which is mediation. There was a very powerful op-ed in the Saudi press by the former intelligence minister saying Israel wanted us to get involved in this war with Iran because they wanted Iran to obliterate the Gulf and for us to obliterate Iran. The Gulf would be unlivable. Then you have the UAE, which is really an outlier in the Gulf states, which is now calling for even closer ties to Israel, closer ties to the United States. So the Gulf is the Gulf. No pun intended. The Gulf widens. Yeah. The Gulf has widened between them and the United States.
I wanted to play for you what Secretary Wright had to say on gas prices as a result of the war. Take a listen to this, and I'll get your thoughts.
I can't make any predictions about, oil prices or gasoline prices. When we start to get free flow of traffic through the Straits of Hormuz, energy prices will come down.
Should Americans be prepared for the possibility of paying $5 a gallon for gas?
Look, again, I can't predict the price of energy in the short term or even the medium term, but what we're doing is ending a 47-year conflict.
So it's kind of a weird way to say it. So you're ending a 47-year conflict by starting a war that has now reached 72 days. But put that aside for a moment. You were talking about China's energy dependence and how it's become kind of like the manufacturer of clean energy around the world. Here in the United States, we're talking about whether or not we're ever going to get back to gas under $5. That's not really how it's going to work, even if the war does end and the oil starts flowing right away, is it?
My understanding is that the Californians are already paying $6 a gallon for their gas. No, I mean, even if the war ends tomorrow, even if Iran had accepted the peace proposal, it's going to take months for the energy market to get. But this is the worst energy crisis in history. This is worse than the 90s. And don't forget, it's not just gas. It's everything that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz. That includes fertilizers. Yeah. That's why the farmers in Thailand are struggling. They can't get the fertilizer.
Not just gas, not just fertilizer. Gas meaning, products from oil, which includes gasoline. But also we have natural gas, we have plastics, we have all sorts of products that are, aluminum smelters have been shut down and may not reopen for many, many months. So this is going to be a major problem throughout the world. And again, I think does enormous damage not only to global economies, but to our soft power.